Thanks for having me. I also want to thank everyone who took the time out of their day to attend today. And as Jerry said, today I have the opportunity to shed some light around the benefits of robotic process automation and how this technology can transform your organization, not only through bottom line impact, but employee satisfaction and operational efficiency. I would like to thank everyone at FEI, as well as my colleague Lauren Bruce, for helping facilitate this presentation. As we go through the agenda, as Jerry said, please feel free to capture any questions you have and use the question prompt. So I'll be able to get to those questions at the end if we have time. So today we're here to cover a number of topics, provide some data around the RPA space, talk about the broad range of intelligent automation technologies, gain an understanding of the core concept of RPA, highlight some business functional areas where we find RPA is most applicable, and see real-life use cases, as well as RPA's response to COVID-19. And if we do have time to, I'd like to show a video of a real automation in progress. So first slide here, as you can see, RPA is a rapidly growing industry, with over 53% of organizations leveraging this technology. Studies show that if this trend continues, over 72% of organizations will be leveraging some form of intelligent automation in the next 2 years. By 2023, intelligent automation will have a $14 billion market size. This technology can be leveraged across industry and has seen success in finance, tax, compliance, and operations. Excuse me for a second. This is a growing industry with a 32.6% compound annual growth rate through the year 2025. Things will improve as a result of this growth. We should see faster deployments, improved scalability, and everything going on recently with COVID, this last point should resonate. We'll have an increased prevalence of working remotely. Now this slide right here, we at Grant Thornton, we refer to this as our intelligent automation spectrum. It shows how diverse the world of automation can be. There's no such thing as a magic bullet or a single solution for your problem, but the typical answer usually resonates within the spectrum. The spectrum includes ICR, RPA, digital visualization, predictive analytics, machine learning, low-code application platforms, and natural language processing and chatbots. Sorry, my slides are a little behind. So we could talk all day about the different forms of intelligent automation, but we're here today to learn about RPA. So what is RPA? Simply put, RPA is a digital software executing processes currently completed manually. So essentially, anything that we can teach a human to do step by step that requires little to no logic can be completed through RPA. So how does RPA work? RPA works it works at the user interface level by mimicking the actions of the human user. There's no need to change existing processes or rules. It works within the current application and does not require data level API integration. It's faster and lower cost to build, deploy, and maintain. It can run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It requires no lunch or smoke breaks and doesn't get caught in traffic. So it's a little bit more efficient than the human being. All right. So as I stated earlier, there's many benefits of RPA. The main benefits are time and cost savings. Processes that can take days of manual labor can be completed in hours. It reduces the cost of manual labor, slow processing, and improves accuracy by eliminating the chance of human error. And worry not, most employees freak out when they hear about automation and it taking place in their workplace. But what they think about this tool is it's going to take their jobs away, and that couldn't be further from the truth. Studies have actually shown that automation improves the customer experience, increases employee satisfaction, and allows teammates to do more value-add strategic activities now that the bot has freed up their time from doing manual tasks. Here are a few more impacts a virtual workforce could have on your organization. As you can see, the fees are minimal when comparing to fully loaded FTEs. Bots work faster, more consistently, and longer hours than humans. Bots can be trained to perform multiple tasks and interact with other bots, and they decrease your risk exposure, adhere to compliance, and eliminate rework, all while providing audit trails and data points to calculate ROI and other data analytics. All right. By now, you may be wondering if RPA makes sense for your organization, but may be unsure of how to identify if an opportunity makes sense. So here are a few high-level questions to consider while searching for opportunities. Is the process manual, repetitive, stable, well-defined, rule-based, with a high throughput rate and limited exceptions? Are the existing data sources already in a digital format or in a format that can easily be converted into digital? If the process you're thinking of checks off these boxes, you may have a prime automation candidate on your hands. All right. The next few slides, we're going to talk about the different functional areas of various industries that have leveraged RPA. You'll be able to see the different work streams within each process that almost all industries have. For example, the procurement invoice processing, supplier management, customer billing, general ledger, accounting, tax, demand management, all the way to desktop support and database administration. So these are just some visualizations of different areas and automation opportunities. And we'll provide this information later for you guys to go through. All right. So what I wanted to talk about now is some real life examples of implementations that we personally did for our clients at Grant Thornton. You'll be able to see the challenges they face and what approach we took to help them out, and then the ultimate impact. The first example was for an RPA implementation roadmap, which paired with the client's ongoing modernization efforts. They had many enhancements in progress, but what they did not address was their many manual processes and lack of overall efficiency and effectiveness. We conducted a rapid assessment, developed a roadmap and business case framework, and helped them select an RPA vendor. And through this effort, we were able to identify over 36 opportunities, captured costs and returns, and help them build out an RPA operating model. The next example was helping a client build a governance model and establish a center of excellence. The client had no standardized governance framework and lacked in consistent training programs. After the COE was built, it provided oversight and direction to their approach and strategy and led to solutions being deployed across 10 different lines of business. The third example was helping a client with data extraction in their accounts payable process. Their AP was not streamlined and their staff was being bogged down in repetitive tasks. After we conducted a thorough assessment of their processes, we helped them automate the manual tasks, streamline their process, improve controls, and allowed the team to focus on more value-add work. Another client's fixed asset process was hampered by large volumes of manual data entry, which exceeded 2,000 plus assets on a monthly basis. We were able to help them automate which reduced time and effort, reduce manual errors, and improve data consistency. And in the last two use cases, they were around purchase order automation and automation of a project closeout process. Both involved highly manual, time-sensitive processes that experienced exposure to manual error and staffing constraints. Through the power of RPA, we were able to increase productivity by 80%, decrease FTE costs, and reallocated over 600 annual hours of human labor to more value-add processes, all while improving accuracy and quality of work. Now, there are many benefits of RPA, but none of this is possible without these steps highlighted on this slide. Stakeholder alignment, change management, process selection, business case development, continuous improvement, and last but certainly not least, center of excellence. Establishing a center of excellence will ensure the successful management of all the previous steps listed above. They will manage the bots, resourcing and training, ensure stakeholder alignment, and continue to help you continue to mature along the complexity curve of automation. Now, how do you get started? I know during this presentation, I've referenced a few sessions and tools that we use at Grant Thornton to identify quality opportunities. So I'll spend the next couple minutes walking through exactly how we do that. So one of the first things we do is we always start with the end in mind. There are 4 key steps in order to get to your end product: the self-service intelligent automation assessment tool, rapid assessment workshops, ROI-driven and force-ranked decision options, and rapid engagement delivery. So I'm going to walk you through all those steps in the next few slides. So the first example we have here is our assessment tool that we use. It's 18 questions around processes, system usage, exceptions, manual intervention, etc. And this all helps us get a better understanding of the complexity of the process. So this form can be filled out by the client as we walk them through the assessment workshop. So they can either do it on their own or we can take them through our assessment workshop. So similar, we will give them a better understanding around the RPA process, identification, process walkthroughs, deliverable preparation, and finally how to build their executive presentations for their leadership team. All right. Once we have completed the assessment tool, we have enough information to begin plotting the process on our prioritization matrix. This is a tool that you can see here. On the one axis, we have the level of complexity. On the other, we have the amount of time needed to complete the process. Now, an ideal candidate would be in the upper right-hand corner, which would mean the process is simple in complexity, but takes a lot of manual effort to complete. These are few and far between, but anything near that box is where you want to start. All right, once we have identified our process, we want to begin developing. We'll run it through our Accelerator methodology. This means we assess the process in more detail, determine automation feasibility, facilitate vendor assessment for RPA solution. We will then we'll help you build out your business case, track and measure ROI, and begin to design the design portion. During the design, we'll capture steps and scope and any necessary requirements. The developers will then leverage this design document and begin building, testing, and putting into production the automation. The final phase will eventually be taken over by the COE, but in summary, we'll help identify and engage the necessary stakeholders, develop an operating model, define delivery methodology, and share knowledge to build skill sets internally and grow and continue on your RPA journey. All right, so now I wanted to highlight some real-life examples of how RPA is helping during the uncertain times of COVID-19. Many businesses are struggling to keep increased volumes of requests, inquiries, and demands. The healthcare industry has experienced the most, I would say, in dealing with COVID screening process. Our RPA vendors have partnered with the healthcare industry and built automations that have helped them streamline the process by allowing patients to self-register. The automation then handles patient verification, intake, provides status updates, and search for the latest and greatest in public health recommendations. In financial services, automation helps reduce time for acknowledging complaints and requests during these challenging times. They've also seen automations help streamline the SBA loan application process to help businesses stay afloat during the shutdown. Transportation has also been impacted by canceled travel arrangements or moved travel arrangements, and the bots have helped airlines handle an increased volume of requests, and users help receive their vouchers for canceled or changed travel arrangements. And finally, a massive military branch is tasked with manually collecting and processing confirmed cases into reports for general consumption. Bots have taken a bulk of that burden away from the human, which allows this government agency to focus on more strategic thinking activities. So real quick, I want to try, if this doesn't mess up, I want to try and show you guys a real life example of a bot we recently built for a client. And I will play that for you now. I don't know if volume will be playing through the speakers or not, but what this bot helped with was a project closeout. It was a case study I referenced up earlier. So again, this has been slowed down for the viewers to see, but it'll really walk you through the end-to-end process. You'll be able to see a lot of the manual tasks that teammates have to do, from bouncing back and forth between systems, copy and pasting, saving things down, attaching documentation. You'll be able to see the bot do this real time. So this is a video is a couple minutes long, but I hope you enjoy. I'll be totally honest with you. In our space, where we're at, we're fairly new in the well, a lot of companies are fairly new in adopting this, but where we've seen it most successfully implemented is around healthcare, financial services, transportation. But the actuarial space is probably similar in a lot of ways. If there's a lot of data being moved from one system to another, or copy pasted or lifted and shifted from one system to another, a lot of these automations are geared towards that. So me personally, I haven't worked in the actuarial space, but I'm assuming with a lot of the processes involved in that area, it would be ripe for automation. So that was essentially it with the video, but you could see it in real time. What it looks like, how it jumps back and forth from system to system. All right, so one question we have is around the RPA bot program. Is there an error log? So yes, as I said earlier, it provides a great audit trail around everything that's going on. So you'll be able to see every successful run from beginning to end, and you'll also be able to see an exception queue. So an exception queue essentially kicks out anything that doesn't adhere to the prescribed steps that we gave the bot. So if there's any manual intervention that needs to take place, if every data field going through doesn't exactly match, the bot won't just continue to move forward. It'll spit out into an exception queue that can then be manually worked. So this is a way that we know not all things are created equal, and there will be some variances in processes. So the exception queue really helps you make sure you're not missing anything, and then the bot can continue to work on things that do fit in that XYZ box, and then anything else can be manually worked. So that's a good question. An error log that displays source records that failed to be understood by the bot. So I hope that kind of helped with that one, but if not, I'll try and answer that question as well. The question was, is an error log that displays source records that failed to be understood by the bot. So some bots we have we call them smart bots, where they're able to try and figure things out on their own. It's a different part of the bot package that you may buy with a vendor. What they'll do is, say they're reading manual handwriting or personal handwriting, they'll be able to set thresholds of, I think 89% of me is positive that this is this word, and anything below that threshold, kick into a queue that you can manually work. So the bot is letting you know, yeah, I understand it, but I'm not 100% sure. The big cases are 2 L's or an 11. That usually gets mixed up from time to time, but the bot will let you know its confidence level, and you can determine whether or not you want to work within those thresholds or not. Let me read some more questions. So yes, the slides will be available to the attendees. Seems like a more formalized process for automation than we simply called writing macros for many years. Are there other tools being used? So yeah, we like to refer to them as the big three. There are 3 big firms that provide automation software. There's Automation Anywhere, Blue Prism, and UiPath. All of them have similar offerings that vary in very small ways, but it all kind of comes down to whatever makes the most sense for your business. And that is something that I mentioned earlier in the slides. We like to come out and help our clients understand the differences in the vendors and how one might tailor to them better. So we do the vendor selection process to really help you understand which tools make the most sense for you. Another one, what hurdles have you experienced in corporate adoption? That's a very good question. I highlighted it on my one slide, but it's stakeholder buy-in is the biggest thing that I've learned has been either a recipe for success or a reason for it not being adopted. So in order for RPA to really take traction, you need someone at the executive level or C-suite level or higher up level to really buy into RPA and help spread the awareness across the organization. Because if you just have one person utilizing RPA to fix their specific process, it really doesn't give it a chance to grow. And we can't really see how well it can scale if it's being implemented in a siloed way. So definitely stakeholder adoption is the biggest one, and a really good change management process. Because if you're not letting people know things are changing, there are some downstream and upstream impacts that you could catch later. So change management and stakeholder adoption is a big one. All right, let me see any other questions here. Where in the organization does the COE generally report to? So typically you'd like to see this in your technology side. So while I was at SunTrust, it sat within our technology space. Just anybody that has the capabilities of understanding the different systems and the architecture of the organization, it makes the most sense to have it there. Because you can start mapping out which systems are connected to which process, and you can start to see the web of different processes that could benefit from RPA. Is there high maintenance required as software upgrades and the underlying applications get implemented? So that's another good question. Is there a lot of maintenance required as software upgrades and underlying applications get implemented? So if it's coded the right way, and you have these processes built out the proper way, which the COE will help you understand, and as we help build out the first couple automations for you, we'll teach you ways that make this a lot easier. But essentially, if it's coded the right way and built the right way, if there's a change that impacts reporting or different systems, there's a quick way to change it that will generate out to all the bots that are in production at the moment. So if you set it up the right way, it's very easy to adapt with the times. But if it's set up in silos, like I said before, it might take a little bit longer to maintain with these upgrades. So let me see any other questions here. Can you give us a time frame to conduct the RPA assessment? Approximately how many hours does it take you? So that's another good question, and it all depends on how many processes we get back from the assessment tool. So if we have, a handful of processes that we need to look at, it could take, a couple hours. If we have 30, 40 plus processes that we need to map out and truly understand, it could take a couple days, weeks. But essentially, when we're building out these design documents, in order to fully understand on a click-by-click level, it usually takes a couple weeks to get as detailed as we need to really hand off to the developers. And looks like those are all the questions I'm seeing in the queue. So I don't know, Jerry, do we want to ask them? Anybody have any last minute questions they'd like to ask before we drop? Because it looks like I got to all of them. If not, my email is in the presentation. My phone number is there. Please feel free to reach out. I could talk about this stuff all day. So I look forward to it, and I hope to hear from some of you. And I hope you enjoyed the presentation as well. I had a great time.
Hey, Bobby, I got a question.
Sure.
I've worked for or consulted for a number of, I'd call them small to medium-sized companies, and so they probably don't have a technology side.
Mm-hmm.
You might have outside consultants, or they just might have maybe the CFO or a controller is good or really likes that kind of thing. Now, you talked about stakeholder buy-in. So I guess the overriding question would be, in that particular context, then, what would you recommend that the company do prior to calling GT and asking to sit down and talk about a possible engagement?
Sure.
Because, I would think you don't want the client to be wasting all their time, your time, just trying, okay, this is what RPA means, so on and so forth. I mean, what kind of preparation might be good for not only the controller, but maybe, or CFO, or, other departments? Any thoughts on how a company can make your use or your firm more effective?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is kind of a personal story for myself. When I was at SunTrust, we didn't have an RPA space at the time. And we really were trying to build out that adoption across the bank. So a few people were tagged with the responsibility of spreading the awareness and also going around and sourcing opportunities. So if you have anybody that knows the organization well enough to schedule some side-by-sides or meetings with the different stakeholders, or even the people actually doing the manual processes that you know about, and just spending some time with them and understanding what they do. And I mean, if you wanted to, you could take the assessment tool that we have and really just start asking yourself some questions about processes within your organization. You could really start to opening your eyes around a lot of the manual handoffs that you don't even realize are going on, and the bouncing back and forth and the copying and pasting from one system to another. So just going through your processes and asking yourself the questions on that assessment tool would make it a lot easier for us coming in day one to really say, all right, here's our 18 processes we mapped out. Which one has the most volume? Which one has the most FTEs dedicated? And which one should we look at as our first automation to get started? So yeah, the more information you can gather around people doing it, systems being touched, and manual intervention is a huge starter. And then we can help figure the rest out.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Since we got a little bit of time, let me ask you another question. I had a former client of mine, and I always remember at the end of the month, the beginning of the month, the accountant you'd say good morning, and they would say, it's not a good morning. Why is that? Well, I'm spending a day. I got to go out to the different banks, and I've got to download the bank statements into our system. And I was just thinking, is that possibly an application? It's simple. It might save some time, but also it might also show you the power of that. And maybe you get that one person that was doing that real excited, and maybe they would be an ambassador for the whole process too.
Yeah, so that's kind of what we look for. We look for those processes that it might not be that grand slam home run that saves millions of dollars for the firm, or cuts out, or you're able to reallocate 70 teammates to a different space. But what we're looking for is that one teammate that spends 90% of their day doing the same activity and just wants more, or wants to do some more value add opportunity. So things like that, going out to websites, downloading documents, statements, pasting them places, or taking pieces of information out of a document, putting it somewhere else. Those are the big wins that we look for as low-hanging fruit, to quickly automate, to get something in their hand that's working, see a return, and then that kind of helps RPA spread throughout the organization a little more organically, because you have that champion at that company. So yeah, that's
Well, let me put you on the spot then. So the client, and I'm not going to mention the name or industry, but they probably had 200 to 250 bank statements that the accountant had to go to the website and to download and to file wherever in their SharePoint or whatever system that they used. Is that how much of a cost would something like that be? Now, this is the upfront cost. You've got to make it. Maybe I should call it an investment. But I mean, if it makes sense, could you give us a rough number, maybe in terms of, you got the cost of GT, you got the cost of the bot, and then maybe those are the only costs involved. I'm not sure.
So yeah,
are we talking about 5,000, 20,000? I mean, I don't have a sense for this.
Yeah, so everything really varies based on the complexity of the process you're looking to automate. But what I can tell you is the RPA vendors, their prices all vary, but they're all very close to each other. And I'm talking within $5,000 to $10,000 of a price point. But again, it all depends on how many licenses you want to buy, how many users you're going to have leveraging this thing. So the range can be anywhere from, $5,000 to $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, depending on how many licenses you want to buy. And then, for GT to come in, depending on the complexity of a process, I mean, that can range as well. I don't want to speak, because Vivek is usually our numbers guy.
That's okay.
But yeah, like that can go anywhere from, yeah, we'll save that one for another time.
So when you say per user, so you would need a license for each user? Is that how that would work?
So it all goes based on capacity of the bot, right? So each bot can operate for 24 hours a day.
Okay.
But if you have processes that aren't timed and don't need to be done at a certain hour of the day, and you can kind of say you have 24 processes that take an hour, and don't need them at any given time, you could run 24 separate processes on a bot, and they could run for 24 hours a day and then start over. But if a process is processing multiple volumes of things, and it might take a couple hours to run tens of thousands of lines of data, then you might only be able to get one or two automations out of that particular bot, that license. So that's how you have to understand how long will it take, how much data is being processed, to understand how many bots you really need.
Okay. I can wrap it up here. I don't know if we have any more questions in the Q&A here. Looks like there might have been something come in here. I'm not.
Yeah, so I got one in the example that Jerry provided, signing on various banks to get statements. How do you secure the login credentials to avoid unauthorized access? So yeah, a bot essentially will get credentials just like a human would. So if your company has user access or role-based access, you would give a bot similar access, and it would use its own login, its own password, and you would be able to track if that bot went in using the audit log and the activity that it completed. So it's just like a human being. However you would give them access to the bank statements, you would give the bot the same. All right, we got another one. Have we done projects with high transaction environments such as AP? Does RPA lend itself well with such processes? Yeah, so AP is one of our biggest areas that we seem to get automation requests, and we have done projects in the AP space. There is a lot of value bots can add to the accounts payable, accounts receivable space. Certain bots, you can actually, if you have a standardized form that's coming in, whether it's an order form or an invoice or whatever it may be, you can actually teach that bot what fields to go look for, pull that data out, and enter it into different systems. It's crazy some of the stuff these bots can do. And like I said, even with handwriting, the way they're able to recognize characters and spit some of this stuff out. I mean, I've seen demos where I couldn't even read the handwriting, but the bot was able to get it to close to a 70% certainty. So yeah, it's crazy some of the stuff these automations can handle. But AP is a great space to focus on. And thank you, Kathy. I appreciate it. She said great job. So I had a couple questions too. A lot of the questions that we usually get, some frequently asked questions are, how long does an automation typically take from end to end? So that is from inception to requirements gathering, to the design, to the build, to testing, all the way across to a full rollout. How long does that typically take? And depending on the complexity, again, it can vary, but for a fully baked automation, it can typically take between 2 to 3 months to get it automated. And we've seen in many cases with a lot of our clients, the ROI data that we can provide. Many of our clients have seen in-year return on investment based on the automation's work. So that really helps a lot of people get over the hurdle of whatever the costs are. A lot of the times, depending on, hopefully we're getting the right process and seeing a quick return, but a lot of the times we see in-year return on your investment, which is huge. The 2FA authorization, is that where you need like a coin or not a coin, where you need a second form of authorization to log in? Is that what you're asking, Dave? Okay. Yeah, so what we've found on situations where you need a token, that's what it was, token. Sorry, I was on the spot. Where a token's required or a second form of login is required. We found that we've either worked with the IT team or the security team to allow that second form of authorization to be bypassed by the bot, since, I mean, the bot is only following a specific set of rules. It's not going to veer off course and do anything off script. So we've usually been able to get sign off for that. And I believe we were recently working through a double authentication where we were able to just get the bot those token credentials. So there hasn't been too much of a conflict, but usually risk is fairly comfortable signing off with a bot, having a single login, since there really is no human involvement and no chance, hopefully no chance of it veering off course.
Yeah, Bobby, any thoughts in terms of the size of clients that would actually consider this? I mean, in terms of, I don't know if it's revenue streams or if it's number of employees, or I don't know what kind of rule of thumb there would be, but any thoughts on that?
Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing about RPA is there really is no one size fits all for this. If you have a company of 5 people, it makes sense, or if you're a Fortune 500 company, it makes sense. It's just all about, where are your manual processes? Where is your time being spent? And where could you spend that time more wisely? And that's where automation can usually come in and help out, because every business has manual processes, big and small. And believe it or not, most of the bigger companies have the most manual processes. But yeah, small and large can benefit from RPA. All right, what is a reasonable ROI for RPA projects? So I like to say, if you can receive your initial investment back, that is a great ROI. because once that initial investment has been returned, everything after that is profit. So if you're able to either reallocate resources to another area, or a job can be completely replaced by an automation, that's in your return, and then everything after that is kind of profit. And what we've seen is a lot of these automations that we have a lot of teammates focused on that we can move elsewhere really only need limited interaction with the human being. So what used to need 5 or 6 people only needs one person dedicating a couple hours a week to just to make sure everything's running smoothly. So any I would say 100% ROI is a great, and anything over top of that is great. And then the reasonable ROI range we've seen, 98% ROI to a 3-year ROI of, over 200, 300%. What is the process to train client staff on the RPA product? For example, Blue Prism. Yeah, so we are vendor agnostic at Grant Thornton, so we are comfortable working with all the RPA vendors. Our developers have experience with all 3. So in order to really train the staff, that's where we get that COE model. And the analogy we like to use at Grant Thornton is typically when we build something out for you guys, the first one, we look at it as one of those sidecar motorcycles. The first one, we're in the driver's seat and you're in the sidecar, and you're watching us, how we're driving and how we're building. And then for the second one, we switch seats, we get in the sidecar and you drive. So it's kind of on-the-job training on how to use these products. And then the different systems, Automation Anywhere, Blue Prism, UiPath, have unbelievable training resources at the click of a mouse. They have instructor-led courses. They have different certifications that you can get. They have a great community space where you can interact with other people in your space using the same platform to really network and figure out what's working and what's not. So that's one of the huge benefits of all 3 of the platforms.
Probably a lot of people know, if you're a member of FEI, you have access to what's called FEI Connect, and that would be a daily sharing of questions and answers by FEI members throughout the country and probably throughout the world. So one source of information, just to kind of kick the tires, maybe to say to ask people what their experiences are with, Blue Prism or UiPath or AI or whatever. I know that there's a lot of chat going on relative to the PPP, the payroll program that the small business came out with, but I think the same thing would apply there. So that's a beautiful source to get additional information. So that's a plug for FEI Connect, it's called, and it's free if you're a member.
Perfect. Yeah, and there's actually a lot of automations. I referenced it briefly in the presentation around financial services dealing with the SBA loan filing. That's that PPP program that's out there. And there's bots that you can plug and chug to really help process the applications, fill out the applications, things like that, to help the SBA and everything they're doing to help businesses stay afloat. So yeah, automation's already working in that space. The last question I'm seeing, have you ever encountered any employee backlash during an RPA implementation? At first, like I said, employees will think it's a bad thing when they hear automation. But we've found that as you start working with them and showing them what their life can be like after RPA, people start to realize that they didn't like spending all that time doing the copy and paste activity. And once you start saying, once we get this bot up and running, we're going to need a person to kind of help run this automation, and you can be the new owner of this automation and break fix support and things like that. They start to get the wheels turning of, my job is now evolving. It's not going away. People start to get excited about a change in process. So at first you're always kind of hit with that uncertainty, but by the end of it, people are usually pretty excited about what's going on. And I always use the example of the ATM. When ATMs first came out, every teller thought they were gone and their job was going to be obsolete. But I mean, you still have tellers at your banks. You still need them. The ATM's great and it's convenient, but you can never really replace the human interaction and the human side of some jobs. So I always tell people not to freak out. It's just going to make your life easier. Any system would be par for the course. RPA, the bot itself is very intuitive. So if there's a login screen or a screen you have to navigate to or click into a tab or anything like that, regardless of the platform you're going into, as long as you can get in there and click around and teach the bot where to go, it's pretty system agnostic. So yeah, I would say any ERP system would be par for the course. How long does it typically take the client to develop the RPA expertise necessary to complete ongoing audits? Like I said, that all depends on identifying the right teammates within your company to be the RPA champion, how much they're willing to take on to learn the RPA system. But like I said, the audit trail the bot leaves behind is very intuitive, and it's not, it doesn't take, a ton of training to read how the bot performed that day, what it did wrong, what it did right, things like that. So the learning curve isn't as big as you may think.
From the standpoint of your hiring professional staff, are you starting to see that you're looking for not only somebody that's got obviously the accounting background, the 5-year degree, but also that has a heavy maybe concentration or maybe a dual major in, and I don't know what you call it, AI, or I'm not sure what you would call it, but is that starting to become real important now in your hiring decisions?
Yeah, so you're seeing a lot of the shift away from the business majors, and you're starting to see more people with, data sciences or architecture, data architecture type roles. So that is huge in the space of RPA. If you know how to go into the back end and find the broken code or figure out how to rewrite the code, that's huge. But again, a lot of this stuff is very intuitive. Automation Anywhere is a big example. The way the bot actually writes the code is people go in and the developer will click on an icon that it needs to open a system, and then Automation Anywhere will write the code to go click into that icon. So all you're doing is clicking and waiting, and then it kind of writes the code for you. And then you go into a different system and click into a field and then wait. And then the software writes the code for the bot to then go in and click in that field. So a lot of the old school hand on keyboards coding away has changed with a lot of this point and click low code software. So really anybody that just has an interest in technology and knows how to work a computer and a mouse can become an RPA developer.
One final comment. There was a question or a comment, and I don't have it in front of me, but the individual said that Willis, I believe is an actuarial firm among other things, they had some kind of a tool, and he thought that tool, modeling tool, and he thought that used an RPA. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of perhaps I don't know if you can comment on that, but it almost sounds like an answer to a question that somebody else had about actuarials. Do you see actuarial RPA?
Yeah, so that's a great example. And if Willis has it and it's pulling different systems together to build out models, then the chances are an RPA tool is helping with that, or another form of intelligent automation. But like I said, there's so many different forms in that spectrum mm-hmm. that be lumped in as intelligent automation. Data modeling and visualization is a big example in that spectrum. Yeah, like I said, anything with numbers, systems, copying and pasting and rule-based, logic-based, this stuff can be applied across the board. And it's not really industry specific at all. It can be plugged in most any place.
Well, Bobby, thank you very much for this really insightful presentation. I certainly learned a lot, and I think you can tell that a lot of our members have some really great questions here, and it's only the beginning, not the end, certainly.